So my topic today is about the foundations of enterprise AI kan. Everyone when we leave this room nanti pasti punya kita pulang ke kantor masing-masing kantor kita sendiri. Definitely there is a big mandate for us to start to adopt some of these systems and can you go and build AI for a company or can you try to integrate AI into our existing processes? Tentu punya kan kita semuanya ada mandate masing-masing untuk pulang and then try to mengembangkan AI di proses yang udah ada atau mengembangkan AI yang baru di proses yang mungkin masih awal atau masih belum ada. Right. So and maybe there's a situation where your boss will come in and like it's not that hard. Seharusnya sepertinya gak sulit ya karena kita kan ada ChatGPT. We have all these cool Gemini and all these systems. Seharusnya gak sulit. If you want to use ChatGPT, you could do that, and tinggal di wrap aja kan. Ini data kita, that's ChatGPT, wrap them, done. So my talk today is about how it's really not that easy and why it's usually a bad idea to just think that way, and then what are ways you could use to sort of counters that kind of argument. So just to warm that up a little bit, I'm going to start off with going to ChatGPT. And I'm going to just ask some very simple questions, all right? And I think most of these questions are also on, actually, let me just start with this, right? I think like the typical question I like to start with, this is on chatgpt.com. Usually the first step I like to do here is ask a question like how many R's in strawberry or something. So how many R's in Burberry, let's say. Now this is supposedly a very easy question because everyone can answer this question. This thing has been known for a long time. ChatGPT have 3 years to solve it. And okay, how many letter R is in the word Burberry? Okay, so it knows that, so we should be able to if we can find out this one, then it should be able to find out about strawberry. So how many R's are there in strawberry? I mean, if it knows this one, it should also knows this one. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so now let's warm it up by going to sectors and then take a few questions there. So it knows most of this stuff. I mean, if you could ask it, like, try again. Let's see what it says. Okay, so far it does all of this pretty well. So let's go ahead and ask it to do a few questions like that. So the first question is this: how many consonants and vowels are there in the word supertype Nusantara? Okay, so it's going to try and do all of this stuff. 18 minus 7, 11. Okay, so there is the vowel, it should be 8, but it gets 7. So where did it go wrong? Let's see. Vowel, super, S-U-P. Okay, U-E-E-U, A-A-A. U. Okay, there's 3 E's, but it counted only 2 E's. Super type, super 2, 1, 2, 3. So looks correct to me so far. Let's go to the third question. At some point it will mess up, but so far it's doing okay. Let's say reverse the word supertype technologies, but skip any E. Okay, okay, so immediately it starts to get some of this wrong from very beginning. If you look at this, you're basically trying to take supertype and you reverse it, but you skip any E. So you give up all this warm up so that it could do better because you give it easy question like how many R, and then from there you ask like, okay, how many vowel. So at some point you think like, okay, if you go from very easy questions, it generally gets smarter over time, but it mess up here really badly. So let's give it another try. Let's say try again. This is wrong, by the way, right? Super type, this is all wrong already. It's not really reversing it, but let's say try again. Okay, let's say the final answer. It's still wrong. It still doesn't get any closer. What you want is for it to reverse supertype, but then remove the E. So it should be U, S, U, P, and then R. But it comes S, R, U, P. It's completely jumbled. And then here, I don't know for what reason, it added another PYRT, but it should be TYP, and there shouldn't be, yeah, technologies. This part is okay, but this is where it completely blundered. So you could go on and on. I won't waste too much time on that. But there is one flaw here that that you can see. The flaw is that questions that you think should be easy generally confound it a lot. It's like, oh, I don't know how to answer that question. There's a few other things you can do. I guess like do one more, right? Like name me 5 cities. Name me 5 cities in Indonesia with 2, let's say Y, which is like Yogyakarta and everything. First of all, it doesn't get anything correct except Yogyakarta. It didn't even try. It wasn't even calling Wikipedia or find some information and like, oh, you know, there are 5 cities in Indonesia with 2 letter words. It just sort of completely failed on that test. And and then it mixed up some stuff. Kuala Kurun, formerly known as Kuala Kurun, may sometimes be stylized with localized. I don't think it ever does that. I don't think Kuala Kurun was ever spelled with a Y. But it's convincing you that it does that, right? So what's the problem here? The problem is that fundamentally, if we use LLM and we wrap our data around it, we are going to expect that kind of massive disconnection with reality. Karena ChatGPT-nya cuma language model, ya, linguistic model. It mimics a human speech. It's not able to reason, not able to think, not able to compute, not able to do any of that. There's a whole article that I wrote that you can go and read up about it. It's pretty long, like it's about a 15 minute, 80 minutes read. I'm not going to go through that. But if you're curious as to why it works the way you just see it, you can just go in there and read that article. So I can't go in that now. But when it comes to enterprise AI, that's the first problem you are confronted with. How do we solve that problem of a language model just applying on the data? Kalau pertanyaan tadi, we can't even get right. How do we trust it to connect to our database? Because you may write a column like this. You may say something like, hey, I create an AI system for a company, and I want you to find, let's say I work in a doctor, let's say I work in the medical industry, find all doctors in Kemenkes with the whatever condition. And if you couldn't even fix the 2Y problem, do you dare to ask this question? I don't dare to ask this question. It's going to hallucinate and give you all kind of, like the Bayu Wangi example. If you couldn't even ask a basic question like that and could not get it right, then there is no chance it could take this and like, okay, let me find all the doctors in all my, all my, not Kemenkes, or let's say Puskesmas that is in a region that is in the special region of Yogyakarta, and then whatever. If you ask a question like that, if you couldn't get those questions correct, there is no chance your AI is going to do that correctly. So how do we build good patterns that ground them to reality? Okay. Now the takeaway is this: LLM itu gak cukup. It's only a language model. It's not a thinking machine. It's not a fact-checking machine. Dia gak berbasis nyata. It could hallucinate, and it could try to convince you that you're wrong, right? Like, hey, I just asked for cities that with 2 Ys. It gave me 5. None of them were correct except Yogyakarta. And then it tried to convince me that, oh, in its previous name, it's spelled with Y. That's not true, right? Now, I can also do a few more demos that really show the sector strength and then compare to ChatGPT, but you can do that on your own. But here, for example, Sectors is one of our products. You can find out more information at the booth behind. When you go out, there's a booth Sectors. You can sign up for a free account. 90% of the features are free. So pretty much everything I do here, you can do at home later. But you want to be able to ask questions like, for example, right, find me the top 5 companies in oil, gas, coal, I don't know, based on market cap. You want to be able to ask your AI to do things like that, and you want your AI to not make up stuff, which is basically calling a database in the backend, and then find you the data, and you can compare, and let's actually see if they're correct. Let's fact check it a bit. Bayan Resources, right? So I'm going to open a new tab, Sectors, and then I'm going to go to oil, gas, coal. Oil, or actually I'm going to go down to Bayan here. So this is Brent. That's Bayan. This is the market cap, 826.313. And this is, you can compare that to this is Brand. Brand is not there. You have to search for Bayan. So let's search for Bayan, B-Y-A-N. Then you can compare the market cap rank, right? It's ranked here, and then you can see how much is the market cap, 670T, and you can compare and see, okay, well, it's correct. It's roughly correct in that market cap is a changing figure. It's like depending on stock prices. Then second is Dian Swastiska, and then Petroindo, Alamtree, Adaro, Andalan, right? But you want it to have this. What if I change this to, instead, the top 5 companies in bank sector, let's say based on revenue. And again, what it's doing in the back end is that it takes this and then it tries to figure out where it needs to find those data. It finds those data and then it presents it back to you. But it does that in a very reality-grounded way instead of trying to hallucinate. So here again, it tells you, okay, this is Bank Rakyat 199.67. So let's go ahead and just click on that and just fact check it a bit. 199.67, let's go to financials. And let's look at the revenue here. 199.67. So you know it's doing a reasonably good job, right? And then you can compare and like, okay, then the second one is Bank Mandiri and stuff. And you can, you can keep on doing this own demo. I don't want to waste your time here. But there are a few patterns here that is important. And I identified in total there are 6 key patterns here. So this is on our website, I believe. I think it's events and then agentic patterns. There is an ebook that you can get for free. You don't have to pay anything. Just go out there and then leave your email, and then you can get the course book for free. But there are altogether 6 patterns, and the 6 patterns are or actually just go to the documentation, which is here. And if you want the link to see on your desktop, on your own phone, it's sectors.app/bulletin/agentic patterns. And in total, there are altogether 6 patterns here. Now, I don't have time to go through all of them, but I'll give you a good enough idea of why understanding key patterns is important. First one is that understanding key patterns allow you to build your enterprise AI in a very grounded way, in a way that doesn't hallucinate, doesn't bring you risk. If it cannot understand basic questions like how many Ys are there in Yogyakarta and everything, then it has no chance of you getting the right Puskesmas based on the postcode or whatever. It cannot do that. So here's the first pattern, the handoff and delegation pattern. Depending on how much time we have, we can try to run some code here as well. But I won't do all of them. I will just skip through a few patterns, okay? So just to save time. But all these materials are on the website. So just go to you can use your phone if you want to, but it's in here. Basically sectors.app/bulletin/agentic patterns. You can find the code examples in there already. Okay, and I'll give you each one of the pattern really quickly. All of these are multi-agent. So what you see just now when you ask sectors questions, you said, for example, which of the banks in Indonesia is growing their Sharia segment fastest, double-digit growth. Now, if you ask Yahoo Finance that answer, it can't answer you that question because to know, Yahoo Finance know what is the revenue, but it doesn't know how much of the revenue is from Sharia segment, interest income, non-interest income, all this other stuff. It doesn't know that. To know that answer, you sort of need the database. To need the database, you need to go down and look at things like income by segment. How much of the revenue of BRE is from micro segment? How much from subsidiaries? How much from retail? How much from others? How much from corporate? This data is only made possible if you hire a massive team to read tons of reports because they are not on. You call Yahoo Finance, you get revenue. You don't get the breakdown. You call Yahoo Finance, you may get something like this: revenue, profit, tax. That's all you get. You're not going to get this kind of details. We have this kind of details for all the banks in Indonesia. Listed banks, 15 banks, and we have them for more than 5 years, so 2020, 2025. And to get this data, you need to hire a massive team to read tons of annual reports. And then this is all the income breakdown. So you see Sharia income, 10 trillion, 12, 13 is going that. Then you compare to other banks, and then you try to answer those questions. It also breaks down the cost structure. How much of cost is spent on general and admin? How much of that is spent on salaries and benefit? Right? And you can see how it compares over different years. And again, do it for every single bank. Now, one such report, is about 900 pages long. if you go and download this report, I'm not going to use that and burn up all my data, but this is about 900 pages long. This is for one bank. There are about 930 companies listed on IDX. If you wanted to collect 5 years of data, this is the amount of pages of PDF you need to pull in order to create a reasonable knowledge base and then use your AI agent to index it. That's a lot of work, right? So you can either hire a big team to do that, or you can just call Sector's API for free and you can get this data, right? So I'm going to show you a few patterns here. The first pattern is handoff pattern, but all of these patterns that I show, all of them feature some sort of tool use where if I ask my agent to do something, for example, this one, okay? Let me clear my screen. I think it's a bit small. Let me zoom in a bit more, okay? This is the tool use pattern. So when I ask my AI a question like this, tell me about a company listed on the Singapore Exchange with ticker D05. Tell me about that. So I'm going to say Python, May, and I'm going to say the name of my file is 2. So I'm going to call that file, and what it's going to do is that it's not going to try to hallucinate. It is going to try and use the tool that it gave it. And let me show you how I implement that tool, right? So this is the code up here. The tool is, this is the answer. We can compare and fact check it a bit. Okay, we can fact check it a little bit. But here, really what it's doing is that we're creating, I know this is really, really zoom out now, but we are creating, okay, here. This is the core of the pattern, is that we create the tools to access those data. So first is that use Sectors to get the company, then get a few other things. We give it like 10 tools, and tools can be as many as you want. We can give it a web browser tool. We can give it a few tools. We can say, okay, apart from that, we want a browser tool, web browser. I want to have a Spotify updater. I want to have maybe a calculator tool. I can have a notepad writer, or whatever. You can have as many tools as you want, but you are creating tools, and then you're creating the agents, and you said for each agent, these are the tools you want to give it. And how do you implement that tool, by the way? The tool is basically just a simple import request here. The tool is really just this. That's it. Really, really smart. And now, when you ask your AI agent that question, you say, okay, tell me about a company listed on Singapore. And then now, instead of trying to make things up, if you ask ChatGPT, there's a great chance it's going to make things up. Here, it doesn't do that. It pulls the exact data, format them, and then it puts everything in here. So this is DBS, Financial Services, is one of the largest companies in Singapore, where I'm from. Stock performance, 1 day, 7 day, 1 month, year-to-date performance change, price records, valuation, financials. Everything is extremely grounded, very predictable. No surprises, no trying your luck, no about like how many Ys in Yogyakarta, no trying luck. Very grounded. Okay, so this is the first pattern. Okay, the 2 years. This is the second pattern actually. I sort of skipped the first one, the handoff pattern. Handoff pattern is like basically creating a manager and assistant relationship. So the manager relationship is that when you get a request, you hand it off to the right agent. So you have multiple agents. Each agent will do something. So for example, if the customer say, "Hallo, ich habe ein Problem und muss mit dem Manager sprechen," that's German. Now, because I use German, the manager will take that and hand it off to the German agent. So up here, it take that request and it hand it off and like use this and do certain actions. There is the deterministic pattern. Basically, I can go ahead and just run this one. Or what kind of companies are we interested in? Let's say companies with the largest market cap. Largest market cap. And you see it's having this conversation, and then you figure out the companies with the largest market cap is what? Chandra Asri, Barito, and BCA.
So it first have to figure out each of the information, it pull them information out, and then it use a second tool. The second tool is in here. The second tool is in my CSV export tool. Because I want my agent to do my work for me, I want my agent to write my report for me, and I want my agent to save my report to a CSV for me. I don't want to do anything. I want my agent to do the whole thing, end to end. End to end, okay? So I said, okay, by the way, when the first agent completed his work, which is down here, this is all the ESG score, price history. By the time it's done, I want to hand it off to my second agent that is going to write the report, then a third agent that's going to print the report into a CSV. I can do it hand by hand. And look at the CSV export tool. It's really just a pandas wrapper. It's like pandas, take that from Dick and then export. Almost a lot of people who have done pandas see this and like, this is nothing. This is so easy, right? You can also export to a text file. And so this is the report that my agent wrote for me without me writing anything. I'm just asking it, like, find me the companies in Indonesia, maybe with high insider shareholding, meaning it's owned a lot by its own managers and directors, and then maybe with a good PE value, and write the report for me, and my agent will perform the task. I'll give you the sort of, I don't have time, I have running out of time. I'll give you 2 more patterns. The fourth pattern is called a judge pattern. Basically, I implement the agent to do something. Here, I'm reading it from the report that my agent wrote. So I have one agent that writes the report. Now I'm implementing a second agent that is going to critique that report sebagai manager. So, and then my manager agent is going to give it a feedback. My manager agent is going to look at the report that my writer agent write, and he said, okay, I'm going to give you a score between pass, expect improvement, atau fail, gagal. And if it's not good enough, the manager is going to tell the other agent to like, hey, rewrite your report because it's missing this information. So my other agent is going to continue to improve that report based on the feedback of my manager agent. Kebayang kan? Agak confusing, yeah? So I have a manager agent called the evaluator. I said you evaluate the stock overview report, decide if it's good enough. If it's not good enough, provide feedback on what needs to be improved. And basically, this pattern is also called the LM as a judge. I don't have time to run through all of that, but I'm going to give you the 5th pattern now. Parallelization. This is a really powerful pattern. If you have one agent doing everything, this thing is going to do synchronously. Dia lakukan tugas satu, terus tugasan kedua, terus tugasan ketiga. It's slow kan? Cuma satu agent, right? But your computer is so powerful. Your computer, you can spin up 6 agents doing the same thing at the same time. So I think I can run this one. Victor, I still have time. Okay? I'm going to do this one. This is very interesting, parallelization. And when I ask for, okay, let me enter stock in stock. I'm going to say BBCA just to save time, okay? And what is it doing is that when I ask for a stock report, I don't want you to just report the financials. I want you to report the financials, which is tool number 1. Terus, revenue segment, where did it grow the revenue? Apakah revenue-nya dari the Sharia segment, the core interest, all these segments bring it and get the revenue segment. Then the third tool, get the quarterly financials. And if I were to ask, and then the fourth one is the financial result. If I were to write this one, if I get one agent to do all this work, it's going to take a long time. But mine finished so quickly. Why? Because I spin up multiple agents to do them at the same time. So in Python, we use the async IO. I said, do all of these tasks using as many agents as one, and then aggregate. Terus decombine, right? So this is called the parallelization pattern. Very powerful pattern. I think Park Pinky is among one of our speakers. If Park Pinky is in here, is it? From BPK. If Park Pinky and his team is here, one of the work we do with Park Pinky, if parallelization doesn't exist, I don't know how we're going to fulfill that. We have to read through like tens of thousands of reports. And if you don't implement smart patterns, it's going to take forever, right? So here you can see what it's doing. And so it pulls out all this data from different agents, and then it aggregate. Now, it pulls out all these agents, it get the output, terus they aggregate, decombine, dejoin. The last one is the guardrails pattern. Guardrails pattern is really simple. Guardrails pattern is basically, how do you make sure that if you implement it into the company, that your company critical information doesn't leak out? kalau misalnya prompt hijacking, right? If I said, go ahead, I said, get me all patient ID from Puskesmas 1001 with that has a single marital status. If I ask a question like that, you want your agent to be careful what information comes out. You don't want this information to contain things that are very, very confidential, right? Maybe there's NPWP, maybe there's a KK, okay, Kartu Keluarga, NPWP, maybe that's fine. But what if there are very private information, maybe even this person's phone number and everything? Do you want your agent to accidentally leak that out? If you give your agent access to your database, it might do that. It might accidentally give out the WhatsApp number, give out information about this customer that you don't want your agent to have. Because the user of this agent shouldn't have access to those data. So how do you implement a guardrail? So a guardrail basically is used to check for two kinds of guardrail. One is input, one is output. So you also don't want people to abuse your chat to ask questions that are very political or very sexual, right? Like create a deepfake image of this patient using this and make it look sexy. You don't want that kind of questions. So how do you create guardrail to prevent that kind of bad behavior? So guardrail, very important in enterprise AI. Kalau misalnya just hobby doang, just creating hobby project, you don't think about those things. But when you work in a company and you're building AI systems for companies, very important pattern. How do you set up guardrail? So let me show you how I implement that. I think I'm really running out of time. I have like last 3 minutes. So here, for example, I set up a guardrail. I say that check the output of the message if it includes phone number. I mean, this is a very simplistic pattern. Of course, you have to write regex for that. But if we release any customer information like .com or phone number, immediately flag and say stop. Trigger and say stop. This is a bit like, any one of you know about the DeepSeek when you can't ask about questions that are sensitive to the Chinese government? Tahu kan? It's basically guardrail. It's like you can use DeepSeek for any reason, but don't ask us to make political comment about Taiwan being a country or not. The guardrail is there. And so let me try this one last time and I'm gone. Sorry, Victor, I know you're timekeeping everything, but last one, okay? Last one. Guardrail. Let me just immediately try and trigger something first, right? If I said, okay, can I explain? Give me a ticker. Okay, sure, BBRI, that's fine, BBRI aja. Let me go and get the company revenue model. But if I go and ask a question that, okay, BBRI, okay, of revenue model, okay, let's say BBCA. And you see that anytime I try to ask anything that isn't allowed in there, okay, now it's okay, there, you see that it's giving you the BBCA breakdown or the revenue. And if I ask it questions like, how do I short a stock based on undisclosed information? You don't want your chatbot to answer that question. Yeah, so it would come back with the guardrail. I may have need to implement it better. This is all done in a very rush way. But you want it to basically say, hey, look, I cannot answer the question. And here, what it says is that I can't help you with that. Please ask me about the company's revenue model by providing a 4-digit. So it refused to answer that question. It's like, how do I short a stock? Short a stock is like short selling a stock before owning it based on undisclosed. That's illegal in many countries. You can't trade on undisclosed information, okay? So those are 6 different patterns. I will say that I don't have too much more time to go into any of this stuff, but the materials, I think it's on our website. And again, if you wanted a copy of that, go to the booth in front and yeah, you can sort of, there is like a 40-page book that I wrote that go into each one of them in more details. I'm out of time, unfortunately, but hope to see you later and catch up with you. So I'm past the stage to the rest of the speakers, and hopefully you learn a lot from all the amazing speakers that we line up today. All right, terima kasih.
Kami persilakan kepada Bapak dan Ibu yang ingin bertanya. Kami persilakan, oke, ada di belakang sana, boleh dikasih mic-nya. Ada 2, kita 2 dulu ya, berarti yang di belakang dan di depan sini boleh sebutkan nama, instansi dan juga pertanyaannya. Kami persilakan.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, my name is Wawan from Lintas Harta. We are a GPU cloud provider.
Yeah.
So what I want to ask is about the parallelization pattern. Is that using the same LLM for the parallelization? If so, do we need to account for the concurrency capability of that LLM?
Yeah.
Okay, so, yeah, that's
Okay.
the question.
Ya, pertanyaan bagus sih karena di sini ya all the patterns that you see itu bukan cuma satu agent, dia multi agent. Jadi bukan satu agent trying to do everything. Setiap agentnya they can have their own set of tools. Toolsnya gak harus di share. Jadi misalnya agent ini ada toolsnya apa? Ada tools report writing. So I'm gonna give it tools like Microsoft Document. You're allowed to touch Microsoft Document to write report. Tapi jangan pakai web browser. Toolsnya cuman Microsoft Document. Nah itu agent pertama. Agent kedua kita kasih toolsnya lain lagi, beda lagi. Mungkin agent kedua you only have tools to do web browser and search and find information. Don't write report. Just do that. Jadi tiap agentnya masing-masing bisa ada toolnya sendiri, bisa ada LLM-nya sendiri. So for the first agent, because I'm doing something like report writing, pakai Microsoft Document, maybe I want to use cloud, Anthropic Cloud, because maybe it's better at that task. But this one, maybe I want to use DeepSeek, or I want to use OpenAI, right? Setiap agent itu bisa ada LLM-nya masing-masing. Setiap agentnya bisa juga ada toolnya masing-masing. I think the example code is in the resources. Tadi mungkin agak sempat ya harus masuk ke detail. But you can take a look at the code. You will see that each agent implementasinya bisa ada LLM-nya sendiri. Gak harus semuanya ada tool yang sama, ada LLM yang sama. Ya. Maka I encourage LLM-nya fit the task that it needs to do. Jadi kalau agentnya fokus ke report writing, cari aja LLM yang lebih canggih ke situ, yang lebih specialized ke situ. Kalau that's the agent is supposed to do research, find an LLM yang lebih ke situ juga. Ya, oke. Pertanyaan kedua.
Baik, kami persilakan ya yang di depan.
Halo,
Halo.
Samuel.
Halo.
Saya Sidik, software engineer. Jadi pertanyaannya gini, permasalahannya kan kalau buat enterprise itu kan mereka rata-rata adalah data-datanya itu nggak bisa keluar. Mereka harus setup on-premise. Which is kalau berbicara masalah LLM, kita tahu sendiri bahwa foundation model yang sangat-sangat komersial itu kan kita hidup dengan berbataskan masalah token. Nah mereka kan nggak bisa concern, jadi masalah token, masalah data yang privacy itu nggak bisa keluar. Nah pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana buat enterprise ini bisa setup mereka punya on-premise.
Ya.
Which is foundation model yang open source,
Yeah.
baik itu Llama, baik itu
Yeah.
Gemma ataupun GPT itu kadang-kadang tidak se-reliable atau seakurat apa yang mereka publish secara proprietary. How do you feel the problem like that?
Ya, kalau restrictionnya depends on what is actually being restricted. Kalau if offline access is one of the restriction, karena kita juga ada kliennya yang di industri yang kayak agriculture, yang di perkebunan pertanian, and those are in like deep of the forest of Kalimantan. If you try and use an online LLM and you try and throw it to OpenAI, it just wouldn't work because they just don't even have internet access. You have to work on device, you have to work on premise. So there are tiny LLMs models that you can load and you can run. DeepSeek has a few flavors. Some of the flavor are very lightweight. You can use those. And you mentioned Llama 3, Llama 4. Llama 4 is also, these are also open source models. Kalau restrictionnya emang ke sana, then those are your options. A lot of times also companies say we don't really want, it's not really a problem with us. The problem is karena takutnya data sovereignty kita. Kita gak mau datanya harus masuk ke servernya orang lain kan. Usually what I mean by that is this, right? It's like this is your data, this is your server, your database, semuanya di sini. What people tend to do in the past is they would just export that data and then throw it to ChatGPT. They would export and then upload to ChatGPT. That's a bad practice. Extremely worrisome, extremely bad practice. The better way to think about this paradigm is take the AI and bring it into your database. Bukannya the other way around. It's not taking your data, export into ChatGPT and AI, but try to find ways to implement AI into your existing processes. All right? Like that's the very, I know it's very broad in terms of how I describe that, but it's very critical because a lot of things are just, you want your AI to work as closely to your source as possible. And I think the third thing I would recommend, and the last thing I recommend is jangan kasih SQL access. It never is a SQL access. No matter what situation you think, I can always propose something better than SQL access. Tapi the core of the problem is jangan pernah ada database-nya terus kita bikin agent. Agent itu buat apa? Agent itu kita buat translation bahasa to SQL. Jadi kalau usernya tanya, kita translate ke SQL, kita execute ke database, jangan pernah buat kayak gini. Almost always there's a better, more elegant solution that doesn't involve touching the database. Your AI agent should never touch your database. Your AI agent should go through tools, and your tools can be API, endpoints, whatever, that you expose by connecting to your database. But your AI agent is only using your tools. Never writing rows, never deleting rows, never doing CRUD operations to your database, right?
Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Kami masih membuka pertanyaan lagi, 2 pertanyaan lagi. Kami persilakan mungkin untuk mengangkat tangan bagi Bapak dan Ibu yang ingin bertanya.
Hi, name's Ed. Well, I'm not really new, but like the advancements is really quick, right? And when it comes to guardrails, is there like a specific pre-built list of guardrails? Because, you know, as you may know, it may involve a lot. And as the example right now, there's only like a few that you can list, right? So you don't want to manually list everything. So is there like a pre-built sets of guardrails?
Well, I think that could be a good business model. You just give away a good business model. You create a set of pre-built guardrails. You create guardrails.id, and then you sell it to all the B2B enterprises.
Let's do business.
Very investable idea. Yeah, but it's very dependent. Each agent can have its own guardrail. Jadi agent yang mungkin yang tulis report itu, yang agent pertama yang tulis report itu, it has its own guardrails. It has to be careful not to be swayed by certain input. Like, okay, I want you to write, or I want you to create this image, but I want it to be very sexy or explicit. You need to have the kind of guardrails to prevent certain behavior. And this is not the same as prompt. They call it prompt engineering. Gak sama ya. Kalau prompt engineering, we call it the ask nicely approach. Basically, you write a prompt. Okay, when the user asks for this, say no. That's not definitive at all. That's not deterministic at all. That's just you asking nicely, and the AI may or may not honor that. Guardrail is not like that. Guardrail is implemented on the code level, and once the output is generated, it checks. If it even feels it's anything off, it comes back and refuses to give an answer. It's different from the ask nicely prompt engineering approach. But is there a preset? There's not really. I think it depends on the use case, but I can see a good business model from there. You create a guardrails.id, and then like financial industry guardrails, PIC, personal information guardrails, healthcare, yeah, good guardrails, and then people can just go and download your guardrails, add that to the model, bam. Make money, but you gave the idea away. I don't know why you do it. Yeah.
Oke, karena waktu sudah habis, demikianlah sesi Q&A. Boleh berikan tepuk tangan sekali lagi untuk Bapak Samuel Chan.